Yeah, Macron, he's an idiot. He's out there in front of Trump saying we need to have a European army so we could take on the U.S. He's sitting next to the U.S. president. And Trump's like, what? He goes, I already run Europe's army.
Hey friends, thank you so very much for tuning in. It's wonderful to have you back. And we're going to do a very important economic collapse update right now, because if the Fed keeps raising rates in perpetuity, it will lead us directly into a collapse, as the interest payments on the national debt alone near $500 billion a year. And my friend Bill Holter says one day soon they will hit $1 trillion a year if the Fed keeps raising. And I have back on the line Bob Kudla. He's the founder of Trade Genius to break it all down. Bob, welcome back.
Hey, Sean, thanks for having me.
You know, Bob, as we look back in the rearview mirror, just on Wednesday, the Fed is signaling it's just going to continue raising rates. And it really begs the question, what is this president to do? The Fed was more than happy to keep rates around zero forever under the Obama administration. But now we have a president who dares to criticize the Fed, and their response is to just keep raising rates. Where does this take us?
Well, you know what? As of Wednesday morning, the Fed blinked, and I added to it. I said they're going to blink, and they're blinking now. They're slinking because Trump, the master, performer that he is, he was no way was going to let them do to him what they did to George Bush #1, and that is to paint all the blame on the president and wash their hands of any responsibility. Trump just got right in front of this thing and said, I don't know what you guys are thinking. You guys are crazy. He just kept up the drumbeat. He ignored all the criticism put on himself. And then lo and behold, GE reports big problems. Yesterday or Tuesday, GM reports, and they're going to close 5 plants. And then we find out 15%, Sean, 15% of the Dow 30 or the S&P 500 cannot cover their interest payments. And they all took what they call these short loans. So every time the Fed raises it, their interest expense goes up. So we could have 15% of the S&P go bankrupt in the next 2 years because they can't swallow the increases coming from the Fed. And it's not just the U.S. They're creating a dollar shortage around the world, and emerging markets are getting liquidated as well. So they just totally screwed this up. They did this before in 1938, Sean, and Trump was no way he was going to have it. He said, you know what, if we're going down, I'm putting the pin on you, and I got a louder speakerphone than you do, and I'm going to tell the world. And today, Powell went ahead and basically said, well, we're almost at neutral, we're almost this, we're almost that. Bitcoin rocketed up 15%. Gold and silver moved higher. Uranium, which is another play that we need to talk about as the year goes on in 2019, all moved higher. Everybody knew that the Fed was destroying the economy, and it was killing it. And so I think the Fed's in a box now. They can't tighten anymore, because if they do, they'll cause the market to crash. And if they don't tighten, they're going to create basically a stagflation tsunami. But we've been prepared for it. We've been talking about this for a year to our subscribers. Get out of the stock market, get into commodities, get into gold, get into silver, get into uranium, stay with crypto, trade in and out. It's going to bottom. And then once the faith in these central banks and faith in these emerging market economies start to fail, cryptocurrencies are going to rock too. And it was all being squeezed by the Fed and their idiotic raising.
I want to ask you about General Motors in a second, but you emailed me earlier about a special Black Friday deal that you've got for my listeners. I think it runs through Sunday, December 2nd. How do you make money for people using Trade Genius?
Yeah, so the Black Friday special, for everybody else, it was over last Friday, but you and I hadn't had a chance to talk. So I kept that open for you till Sunday for your listeners. So December 2nd, they could still take advantage of the Black Friday specials, and these are the best prices of the year. That's why I put it out there. We go back to near normal pricing for even our Christmas specials aren't as good as our Black Friday specials. So I just encourage people, if they're interested in what they do, take advantage of them. The prices are really good. Now, what we do and how we help people make money is that.
Well, let me ask you, though, real quick. Is there a promo code?
Oh, no need to promo code it. I just put it back up on the site for you. So
Okay. All
the
right.
site's just open. TradeLikeAGenius.com. Go to the bundles. How we make people money is that it's really simple. It's buying momentum and selling momentum. And then we look for excessive moves one way or the other, and we look for reversals. So we have algorithms that we built, so we don't rely on our own emotions and fears and greed. We let the market tell us when to buy and sell. Case in point, Bitcoin, it was flat, 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 and then the month of November, it basically dropped almost 50%. But since September, the calls that we put out for our subscribers, they would be up on the year because we had them out of trades. We had them in trades that were working. And same with gold and silver and the uranium plays. We look for places to get in. You take the trade, you get out, and then once the momentum kicks back the other way, we can take longer term trades. So either way works for us, and we've been very successful. And in fact, some people came up to us and said to us, "So glad we found you, because I was losing so much money because I didn't really know what to do. People were just telling me to hold." And you showed us a path in which we can make money even when the market or even the crypto markets were going down. So we're kind of gratified to hear those kind of comments.
Well, I want to ask you about cryptos here at the end of the interview. I'm wondering if we're getting near a bottom here. It would suggest Wednesday's move strongly higher in crypto suggests maybe the bottom's in. We'll circle back to that. But you mentioned General Motors earlier, and I wanted to ask you, did you see this news item? I love this. This president doesn't like to be bullied by anybody. General Motors apparently announced that they're going to close some plants, I believe in Ohio, and the president responded by saying, okay. If that's the way you want to treat America and Americans, then maybe y'all should pay back that $12 billion bailout that we gave you and saved your butts with. I just love that. He doesn't like to be bossed around by these corporations, does he?
Yeah, I mean, look, they want their cake and eat it too. And I think it's patently unfair. And they made these announcements before the Christmas holiday. And look, the other thing they did was, Sean, is that they're one of the biggest offenders of buying back their shares with borrowed money. So they crippled their own company by trying to enrich, the elite executives, and then they turn around and say, well, things aren't going as well. So what we'll do is we'll shut down auto plant for people that have to work for a living. And that's just patently unfair. And Trump called him on it. And then he also said, look, if you're going to dip your hand in our pot, then I have something to say and can say and do. And guess what? If you get in trouble in the future, I'm not bailing you out. And so I'm sure if it's not going to give her pause, is everybody else is coming after this, after General Motors, is not going to make the same mistake. So he right away just said, I'm drawing a line in the sand here. There's no way we're going to let what happened in 2008 happen in 2019 if things start slipping economically. We need to build this. We're all for this country. We're not all for ourselves.
All right, let's circle back to the Fed briefly, and let's just think about the big picture, because I have an important news item to share with folks. Many of you may have seen this already, and it's this. The Rothschilds have signed an agreement to sell their trust business. I've heard that the Rothschilds are very much under fire because of what's going on in this country with this president and with the white hats circling the wagons. Your thoughts on that, and your thoughts on the Fed, because you said if the Fed keeps raising rates, they know they'll crash the market. Well, ultimately, isn't that their last card? That seems to me to be the card the Rothschilds could play. Bring the whole house of cards down by crashing the market on purpose.
Yeah, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would say that strategy would be successful. But the rise of the, you could call them populists, I call them nationalists, I think are giving them some pause. Look, Brazil is now in the Trump camp. Italy's going into the Trump camp. So United States obviously is in the Trump camp. And so they're going to find that that's not going to work. And Germany's never really been in that camp. They're the only country that's actually running a budget surplus. So I don't think the central bankers of the world have the maneuvering room that they had in the past. I was talking to somebody yesterday about globalism. I said, it's not really globalism, it's really Europeanism. I said, look, the Chinese and the Russians don't let Europe run what we do. They try to interfere. They've been interfering in our life, since inception, but Trump's blowing that up. And if they crash the economy, look, these bankers have nowhere to hide. And I think they value survival over everything else. So they may pull back their horns, Sean, to fight another day instead of trying to crash this market like they've done in the past, because I don't think it'll work for them this time. Look, the millenniums, look who the Democrats have elected. Socialists and communists, they have no love for a Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve is the domain of progressive, not socialists and communists. They would love to do nothing more than what Venezuela did to their central bank, rob it like a piggy bank. So I think the Fed has to be a lot more savvy, if you will, to try to survive this. But I don't think they will. I think the era of the central bank as an independent or a global entity is ending, and we're going to go back to some sort of sound money or digital crypto money where there's going to be a little bit more trust as to the value.
You said something that does resonate with me here, and it's this idea that globalism, the narrative, Europeanism, as you put it, this narrative that global government is the best government and patriotism is a negative thing. That narrative is no longer working. I'm not sure if you saw the video of the wonderful people, our brothers and sisters in the United Kingdom, chanting in the streets, saying, "We love President Trump. We want Trump."
Mr. President, if you are seeing this, just know that the great deplorables of the United Kingdom love you, we are with you, we stand with you, and we want you to succeed. Forget about the people in London, forget about the establishment, forget about the detractors in the fake news media. The real people out there in the United Kingdom, we love you, Mr. President!
Standing in stark contrast to our president is a literal Rothschild puppet named Emmanuel Macron. He literally worked for a Rothschild bank, folks, came out of nowhere, and the mainstream mockingbirds in Europe called him an outsider when he was running against Le Pen. And then we have Merkel in Germany, also another 100% controlled bankster puppet. And in this country, who did they want in the White House? Clinton. Who's her buddy and booster and supporter? Soros. Who is Soros? A Rothschild bankster puppet. I'll tell you what, these globalist candidates, by the way, Macron's approval rating is below 20% now. Everyone on earth is rejecting this narrative of global government, and that's the best possible news I think we can share.
Yeah, look, people are tired of not having a say, and these people, these people are supposed to be the smartest people in the world. At least that's how they think of themselves, and they always overplay their hands. And at least, hopefully, this time we're going to be able to unwind these guys before they start another world war. And Macron, he's an idiot. He's out there in front of Trump saying we need to have a European army so we could take on the U.S. He's sitting next to the U.S. president, and Trump's like, what? He goes, I already run Europe's army. It's like, these people are. I just think they're divorced from reality. They have some sort of like daydream that they live in all day, and they try to keep reality out of their lives, but it's coming at them hard. And Italy is going to blow them up. The Brexit thing's going to happen one way, shape, or form. And look, in the Eastern Bloc, they've tasted socialism and communism before. They already kicked Soros out of Hungary, and they also just recently Turkey kicked Soros out of their country. So I think these wings are getting clipped, Sean, and it's a good thing. There's going to be some pain with this, but I think ultimately people are going to take more and more control over their national lives.
It makes one wonder why, when he is a dual citizen, I believe, of Hungary and the United States, why in the world he can't be arrested by our president, by the white hats, for sedition? Because he's clearly been seditious against the U.S. Constitution and the government of this country. 100% on the record, his open society foundations, etc. But if we circle back to these puppets, did you realize that when Macron was sworn in with the backdrop of that big black pyramid behind him, he was sworn in, he walked out on stage to the EU anthem, not the French anthem. That's how bought and sold these guys are. Just astounding. And then our president gets on television and talks about nationalism and sovereignty, and the mainstream media treats it like it's the ultimate negative N-word, nationalism.
I'm proud of this country. And I call that nationalism. I call it being a nationalist. And I don't see any other connotation than that. Now, as soon as you make any statement nowadays with the political correctness world, they make a big deal. I'm not a globalist, but I want to take care of the globe. But first, I have to take care of our country. I want to help people around the world, but we have to take care of our country or we won't have a country, including we have to take care of our country at the border.
So scary and evil.
Well, you know why? I mean, look, they want to pull power from the local people, and they want to be able to run it through bureaucrats where they they could just, like Brussels does to Europe. They want that so badly for the United States because, look, number one, we're a Christian nation that has, even though people aren't as Christian as they were, we still wrap our laws around that mindset, and they basically don't want to have any kind of restrictions on the way in which people live. And same with climate change. That's the religion of the left. As a funny aside, since we're talking to Macron, is that they wanted to do the Paris Accord 2 years ago, and then just last week you saw the riots in Paris. They got a Paris Accord, all right. The French people are speaking right now and saying, "No mas, we're not paying for this." And I guess the French word is non. And right now there's a diesel shortage in France because they basically shut down the refineries saying, we're not paying for this stupid stuff, and so I think climate change is off too. And that's where their power base was going to come from, Sean. That's where all the money was going to flow out of the United States, flow out of these European governments into the hands of these bureaucrats that then will just pull the levers around the world. And, look, in two of the territories in Canada, Alberta being one of them, are saying, hey, maybe we're better off trying to cut a deal with the U.S. and become a territory of the U.S. again, because, the eastern provinces of Canada are basically starving us to death with these carbon taxes and these carbon restrictions. So that's blowing up on them too, Sean. So they're losing their power base, they're losing their money sources, they're losing the narrative. And if they lose these central banks and their ability to do things for us, then I think they're cooked. And also this whole social media thing is blowing up on them too. So, we just have to keep faith, and we just have to keep being bold and keep getting our message out and telling people, look, bullies are only bullies until they're revealed to be not bullies. And we just have to keep pressing it because Trump has shown them these people have no there. If you challenge them, they fold.
Yeah, what's going on in Canada is very interesting, and you remind me of yet another puppet. This puppet happens to be controlled by the Queen, to whom he swore his fealty, and that's Justin Trudeau, the dancing fool, who has never met a globalist talking point he doesn't embrace.
I, Justin P.J. Trudeau, do solemnly and sincerely swear that I shall be a true and faithful servant to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II as a member of Her Majesty's Privy Council for Canada. I shall keep secret all matters committed and revealed to me in this capacity, or that shall be secretly treated of in council.
And it is destroying Canada. So what an interesting point. Again, standing in stark contrast against these evil puppets around the globe is President Trump. And we all have to be buoyed by the fact that he's willing to put his neck on the line to try to make America great again, because you know as well as I do, if the witch had gotten into the White House, her goal was to bring us to our knees and implement these exact same policies that we see from Macron, from Merkel, from Trudeau. Same exact policies would have been rolled out here.
Yeah, I mean, we dodged a bullet. I mean, thank God. I mean, it was, and it must be a God thing, because that was just an amazing ascension for this man. And I'm glad he's been true to his word. I mean, literally, he has not bent. And people that think that he's new to this is that when he wrote his books and you see interviews with him in the 80s and 90s, all you have to do is substitute China for Japan, and he's been railing about the same things for 30, 40 years. He's consistent. And so I'm very thankful. I could deal with his some of his social tendencies, because he's looking out for my family's best interest and our economic survival as a nation.
Yeah, as we look ahead at the calendar, big things are coming. And I want your thoughts on this. The possibility that Hillary Clinton may finally be arrested in due time for her crimes on D5, December 5th. from which there is no escape, we're told by Q. On D5, December 5th, we're going to hear from Huber and some whistleblowers, evidently, that are going to provide updates to the GOP into the ongoing Clinton Foundation investigations. And those are investigations plural, Bob. It's not just one. I believe FBI has one going on. The DOJ, I believe, has one going on. And we've heard from Charles Hortel, who I've interviewed, that the Clinton Foundation is the largest foundational charity fraud in the history of the world, bar none. And you know her litany of crimes goes well beyond just the Clinton Foundation. Her crimes run deep right back to when she was Secretary of State, and she set up that shadow government on the 7th floor of the State Department. This woman has literal blood on her hands from Haiti to Benghazi, and now what they ultimately may get her for is this charity fraud through the Clinton Foundation. Your thoughts on D5, December 5th, Huber? You think she'll ever be arrested?
Well, I think they've been holding back, for maximum effect. And I understand Mueller's under investigation as well for trying to tamper with a case against a defendant too. So, there's no accident Trump selected the acting attorney general that he selected. This guy has the knives out for Hillary. They know it. And he's one tough dude. And so, hey, December 5th is a good enough date for me. I have no insight. I'll defer to the people that are on the inside and their intel. They've been reasonably accurate over the past year. So I'm ready for it. I'm tired of waiting. I'm sure you are too. And so she needs to go. And look, Trump's already hinting around it. He said, yeah, okay, my daughter uses a personal email to talk to staff people, and she's going to be arrested for a felony, and you have the Secretary of State with confidential information and destroying a server. Sure, I'll be happy to trade my daughter's crime for Hillary's crime. That ended that whole conversation in about a nanosecond.
Yeah, and it just shows the blatant hypocrisy of the left in the Mockingbird mainstream media. I've got a new best example ever. I'll share with you. I shared it in a recent video. One of the best examples I've ever seen of the Mockingbird mainstream media's blatant lies and hypocrisy is a tweet that I saw go out from NBC News with an attached story talking about how Brenda Snipes and other black election officials were victimized essentially by President Trump down there in Broward County, when NBC News must surely know that it is absolute on-the-record fact that Brenda Snipes committed a felony in the Democratic primary when she destroyed the ballots. That is on-the-record fact. It's a crime for which she should go to prison, and NBC News just avoids it, pretends it never happened, and literally sends out a tweet and a story that is a fable, just like Russiagate. Everything we see them accuse the president of is the same stuff that they themselves are guilty of, Bob. And when I say they, I'm talking about the deep state.
Yeah, well, it's called projection in the psychological world. They accuse people of what they are, because they think everybody is like them. And yeah, this is a vast criminal enterprise. And so I'm hopeful that it gets unwound. We need, as a nation, we need to have a cleansing here. It's just been amazing. Now, look, also Lindsey Graham being in the Judiciary Committee, that's very powerful as well. They moved Grassley over to another committee, and Lindsey Graham, he's eyeing, hey, I may want to be president in 2024. And so he made nice with President Trump. He became his barking dog, and he's very eloquent, and he's very effective, and he's a great communicator. And he's going to be a vital role in moving things through some of these investigations that are going to come up. There was no accident they moved Grassley out. I don't think Grassley had the stomach for it. He knows these people far too long. Where Grassley, he's itching for a fight. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, my spirits are buoyed, Bob, because I know that the Clintons are circling the drain. They've lost all credibility. They've lost all of their political power. They've played all of their chips. Now they're trying to do this national tour, which is falling flat on its face. They did actually appear in Canada just the other day, and nobody was in the audience. Literally, I'll try to find a picture here to show you guys. 80% of that arena was empty. These people are a joke. And ultimately, the joke will be paid off, I believe, with jail time. They're circling the drain. Guys, I did that video recently, too, called Circling the Drain, about the massive investigations taking place in the state of Arkansas, the birthplace of the Clinton criminal cartel. You guys probably do remember that Department of Justice Boeing 757, which landed in Arkansas back on August 8th. And it actually was there twice that day, collecting thousands and thousands and thousands of documents into these ongoing investigations into the swamp in Arkansas. I think that's the good news I want to share with people, Bob. Regardless of what happens on December 5th, these investigations into the criminality of these people that the powers that be wanted in the White House are continuing, and they will continue. And ultimately, I think that they will be tied up, and ultimately, I think they'll be indicted for some crimes. Feel free to weigh in on that, or we can transition over to precious metals. What we saw on Wednesday, I think, was good for gold. And also good for Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin was higher by 15, 17%, something like that Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, it went from almost 3,500 to as of before our conversation, it was touching 4,400. That's a big move, and especially since people thought it was going to zero. We were eyeing 2,950 as pretty strong support, and I was talking to my partner who's or old crypto miner. We said, you know what, it'll be very bullish if they don't let it get to that point, because there was a lot of people waiting to buy there. And if they start buying at 3,400, it's going to be pretty positive. And that's great news. Now what we have to see is for this thing to climb over 5,400. And then what we really would have is what we call bear trap, Sean. So that's what we're looking for now, 5,400. But it really doesn't matter. You just have to, until you get an uptrend, you have to just trade through this and bring your cost average down. If you like to trade in and out like I do, I'm in a position and totally out. Phil, he likes to be in a position and only take part out, and he keeps bringing his cost basis down. Now his cost basis is like in pennies, but in general, people who they call hodl it, you need to be open to adding and taking off position so you can bring your price point down. Because we're now really back to early 2017, price range. So anybody who bought in the last 2 years, if you held, you're probably underwater. But if you start trading through it, you're going to go ahead and start bringing your costs down and making more money. Gold and silver, everything changed in that in August, and gold and silver have kept their prices. The miners got pushed down some because I think they're trying to paint a narrative. Don't buy the miners. They're the Fed's going to kill gold and silver. Well, that hasn't been the case, even though they've been raising the rates. And in 2011, people just need to look at 2011 when gold and silver started to move higher. The precious metals will move between, the miners will move between 200 and 800% over the pricing that we've seen in basically the beginning of this summer. So this move is just beginning, Sean. And the reason being is that there's simply no way they're going to allow a 2008 or 1929 collapse to occur. They're going to throw money out there as fast as they possibly can, and people need to be in the stocks that are going to move higher, and that is in the mining space. Precious metals, uranium, cobalt, copper, all those will do well. And that's what we're encouraging people to do. That's where we turned our algorithms and our watch list towards. And so we can help people make money. And today, uranium miners, big moves on them today as well. So that just told us that the Fed has been just trying to suck the liquidity out of everything. And once they relent, everything's going to blow up higher in that space. But the stock market's in trouble, Sean. So it's overvalued by 30%. It needs to reset. Money needs to move over to the commodity area and move out of the tech space. And that's our mindset going into 2019.
All right. Well, you mentioned uranium, and look, there's another reason that witch should be in prison: the Uranium One scandal. Right? She and her cohorts were the only ones colluding with the Russians, and they try to frame President Trump as being a traitor, accusing him of colluding with the Russians. When they bake up the whole story with Fusion GPS and the phony dossier, when she herself and Obama are guilty of gutting this country, selling the uranium to Russians, making sweet deals for themselves, and colluding with the Russians. You can't make this stuff up. At some point, Bob, the chickens are coming home to roost.
I mean, look, this is like an epic movie. I mean, you can't write this narrative. You couldn't sit down there and invent a story as bizarre as the whole Clinton cabal since them coming into power in the late 80s. It's just amazing to me.
Hey, one final thought here on Bitcoin and silver. I continue to believe firmly with every cell in my body that $14, $15 silver is extraordinarily absurd given the mountains, the trillions upon trillions, hundreds of trillions of debt that there is, derivatives, etc., throughout the world. $14, $15 physical silver, it's not beholden to the debt of anybody else if you hold it in your hands in physical form. I just think it's an astounding way to preserve wealth no matter what comes. But Bitcoin, do you think that Bitcoin is manipulated? Here's my thesis. I remember after that internet bubble was popped back in the year 2000, Amazon, which was a high flyer during that tech bubble, crashed all the way down to $5. And look at it today. I think this is what the bankers like to do. They like to run up bubbles. They pop the bubbles. They short and make money on the way down. They buy at the lows. They make money going back up. And I think that's what's going on with Bitcoin. Because if you think about it, with only 16 million Bitcoin on planet Earth, the buyers must far outweigh the sellers. In my opinion, at some point, Bitcoin will hit a bottom and it probably will go back up to 20,000 and beyond.
Yeah, look, our view is, I mean, you're not wrong. What people don't understand about Bitcoin, only about 20% of the coins are really even floating. So most people have this stuff locked up in wallets and cold storage and not touching it. And so when you get selling that somebody, and look at the selling that happened, it's totally manipulated selling because nobody in their right mind would sell to cause a cascade in the value of what they're trying to sell. That's somebody that's called a non-economic seller. And so when you see those kind of moves, you know the end is near because they're trying to force the price down so that they can shake out weak hands so that they can accumulate. And so, you have the NASDAQ next year going in, they're starting their own futures market. You got Coinbase now starting an over-the-counter trading market. And so you're starting to see the institutions starting to get a lot of interest. And just a month ago, Sean, the Chinese have allowed their citizens to trade Bitcoin again. So some of that could be some of those guys trying to sell out, get their, get cash for their Bitcoin and have it out of the country because, China's a mess. And some of it for sure is the futures market that they're trying to push this price down. But they met some strong hands this week. And so I'm pretty confident that we hit a low, but if I'm wrong, then definitely the mid 2000s, 2,500, 2,900 will be met with even more glorious buying. But, at any rate, it needs to get over 5,400 and then we can start looking for it to uptrend again.
All right. Well, I bring it up simply because we've seen some capitulation from some former big Bitcoin bulls who have thrown in the towel and said they've sold their Bitcoin. And I believe that could mark a bottom. We'll keep an eye on it. Hey, before we let you go, Bob, shout out the website again for that Black Friday special, which is good through, midnight on December 2nd?
Yeah, midnight Sunday, tradelikeagenius.com. We have bundles that run the gamut from just trade signals for stocks and trade signals for crypto, coaching. We have trading rooms. We have education packages. And we bundle a lot of that together where people can get the signals, the trading room, a half-hour coaching time with myself or Phil. And they can get also the training courses available to them at no charge. So we're doing everything we can to help people start making better decisions trading and also then rely and leaning on our algorithms to help them trade better. And we even make that software, those indicators available to them on their PC with the software that we have so that they can actually follow things that we don't follow. So it's a really good package. It's a really good service. We try to really, really hard to help people make money, and we're successful at it.
All right, guys, we'll put that link in the more information section right below this video. Our guest has been Bob Kudla, the founder of Trade Genius. Bob, thanks so much.
Hey, Sean, thanks for having me. And enjoy the holidays.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you so much. And guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We very much appreciate your support. You know, it really is true what Q says, where we go one, we go all. And fortunately, we weren't asking for a savior to lead us. We were asking for an honorable man to just help enforce the rule of law. And I think we're going to get more of that. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll continue to follow these storylines, and we'll let you know just the minute we see Hillary Clinton arrested for her crimes. God bless you all. Thanks for tuning in. And for real news, visit us at sgtreport.com. Bye-bye.
Unthinkable that a politician 50 years ago like Barack Obama would have at least 5 different Social Security numbers, which he did. We can't even talk about that now because they shout you down, and that's what the left does at this point. It's all about name calling and killing the messenger.